New information exposing behind-the-scenes details finally explain what was really going on in the shadows. Why haven't we gotten a Bloodborne or Sekiro sequel, and what was really going on between Sony and FromSoftware all these years? As my fans know here on this community, we like to jump right in, so let's go. For what I'm about to talk about, I recommend these two videos for a more in-depth analysis of the history on these two specific games, but in the meantime, we're just gonna have to go. FromSoftware was founded on November 1st, 1986 in Tokyo, Japan. The company was established by Naotoshi Zin, who initially led the company as its CEO. FromSoftware originally focused on developing business applications, but as the gaming industry grew, they shifted toward game development in the 1990s. Their goal was to create an innovative and challenging game that stood out in the industry. Their first game, Kingsfield in 1994, was a first-person RPG for the PlayStation, known for its difficult and atmospheric world. This set the foundation for their later games, including the Souls series, which became their defining franchise, as you know very well. In 2006, development for the Demon Souls game started, but before we go any farther on that, we have to catch up with a very specific person named HIDETAKA Miazaki. Miazaki was born in Shizuoka, Japan in 1974. He studied social science at Keio University, but didn't initially work in game development. Instead, he started his career in the IT industry before transitioning into gaming later on. Miazaki joined the famous team in 2024. Famous team is FromSoftware, as you know. After being inspired by the 2001 game Ico, he started as a designer, but took over development of Demon Souls when the project was struggling. Now, what does it mean struggling? To be absolutely honest, in the beginning, without Hidetaka Miyazaki, the game series, the world, and all of it was very unfocused with no clear direction, if that makes sense. Sony Japan Studio partnered with FromSoftware but wasn't impressed with the early versions of the game. Now, I'll get to that in a second because some of the newer information that just dropped is on that topic right there. Well, when Miyazaki joined the gang and took over control, he revamped the project, introducing more challenging gameplay, deep lore, and cryptic storytelling, which became the game's identity not long after. But it wasn't just the storytelling or the atmosphere that led this game. The whole, invasions and summoning and messages and the death and respawn mechanic kind of thing was huge back then. That was like game-breaking, bleeding edge kind of stuff. Well, it turns out that as the release date was coming closer, there were, as you would imagine, a couple different, people playing and testing the game, one of which was Shuhei Yoshida. At the time, he was president of Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide Studios. That's pretty big. He played the game, and after spending about 2 hours on it, he said, quote, "This is crap, this is an unbelievably bad game." With that being said, he went to FromSoftware, the devs there, and said that this game just didn't have the feel for a worldwide release. It was too specific to a very certain genre, and that it just wouldn't apply to many of the audiences around the world. So in 2009, they decided not to publish Demon Souls worldwide for that exact reason. This just wasn't a worldwide game. It was too specific. It wouldn't apply to a worldwide audience. Well, FromSoftware did not like this, and they looked for another publisher because they knew it had potential. This was something that the whole studio, after, of course, Hidetaka Miyazaki, thank you, came on and rekindled. Nevertheless, they knew that something was here. It might have been buried way down the surface, and this may just be the first of a few other games it took to get them finally, on the right path, but they knew that something was here. They were onto something. That's when Atlas published Demon Souls in North America for the PS3, and Bandai Namco did the same, but in Europe, all in 2009, and that right there is the point in the story where things started getting crazy. This game blew up. The potential that this game had that Sony didn't see and said that it should stay here, not be a worldwide release because it just didn't have that potential. That was wrong. Well, to say that FromSoftware did not like Sony, or at least just didn't want to work with them again, would be an understatement. They were holding FromSoftware's game, Demon Souls, back from its full potential. That's when, a little bit later on down the line, FromSoftware went to Bandai Namco for the Dark Souls series starting in 2011, and we already know how that story went. It just went on and on for 3 different games and did amazing. So far, Bandai Namco and FromSoftware, they get along very well. Sony and FromSoftware, not as well. Well, seeing Dark Souls' success, Dark Souls' success. Wow, that's a lot of S's, okay. Seeing Dark Souls' success, Sony hired FromSoftware to make a PS4 exclusive game, which means that they own the IP. This is Bloodborne. Though I am simplifying things just a little bit, that's the flow of the story, if that makes sense. While each group at the time said positive things about the other, how they were very grateful to work with the other, we know what was really going on behind the scenes, because recently Yoshida, the boss of PS at the time that they were making these games, just retired, and he now is able to speak freely about a lot of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. And he even talked recently about how they knew they messed up when Demon's Souls started being successful around the world. And I'm not talking about messing up by holding them back, but by the relationship between FromSoftware and Sony, that was ruined. It's kind of a joke in the community these days how, you know, Sony came to FromSoftware with a buttload of money, like a truck of money with gold or something, and they asked them to make Bloodborne, and that's how it started. Nevertheless, we have Bloodborne, and that is most likely why we're not going to get a sequel, because the guys that held FromSoftware back in the beginning and just didn't have the same vision for this game, a sour taste in the mouth, if you can imagine that, they own the IP to Bloodborne. Well, for Sekiro, though a lot of their games, Dark Souls, Demon's Souls, blew up around the world, they didn't have a lot of clout to publish outside of Asia. Again, publish outside of Asia. So they went to a number of different companies and just asked around. Activision was one of the companies who also expressed a desire to work with them as well. There was something here. Sekiro originally started as an installment of the Tenku series, a franchise that they own the rights to from software, and it's actually pretty awesome. As they worked with Activision on the game, it quickly grew into something bigger than they had planned, and to say it outgrew the pants or the clothes of the frame, the story of Tenku would be an understatement. While it carries a lot of those themes, Sekiro is a lot deeper, and I hate to say it, but cooler. And so Sekiro was born. Both Activision and FromSoftware praised the other company for their work on Sekiro, and both parties were happy. Now, a lot of questions that I see is why the heck did FromSoftware go to Activision when they could have gone to someone else? Why did they go to the same guy that, you know, most of us hate? Why did they go to the same company that so many of us hate because they ruin games? To be absolutely fair, Activision used to give us some pretty good games. And again, Activision also reached out to them and, you know, wanted to work with them. Well, Activision went above and beyond, providing a ton of help behind the scenes in the development of the game. Not only did they do a fantastic job of publishing the game and getting the name out there and the word out there, you know, look at this game, it's awesome, the trailers were awesome, everything was amazing. They also provided and this is something that might just be me making this connection, but it's kind of funny. They also provided a lot of, like, later and early, you know, beta testing for FromSoftware. They provided excellent feedback and tried to help the company get their dream out there, a dream that Activision, again, also had a part in creating. But the funny thing is that it started with Yoshida playing 2 hours of Demon's Souls and not liking it, so then he decided, you know, the world's not gonna like it. Nothing against him, he seems like a decent guy, but hey, this is the future FromSoftware we're talking about here. So then to have Activision come alongside and then give a whole bunch of help when it comes to testing and like beta testing, it might just be me, but I kind of see something funny there. Now, years after the fact, Sekiro was a huge success. Again, it has one of the most passionate communities, a community that I am part of, who are in love with the game and absolutely ready to spend any amount of money on a sequel. My wallet is open. Why didn't we get a sequel? And to be absolutely fair, with how much has come out when it comes to, you know, the behind the scenes of Bloodborne and, you know, and Yoshida's influence on why we haven't gotten a Bloodborne 2 and Sony and that relationship, while so much has come out in the last like 3 days, I don't expect it to be a large amount of time. I don't expect it to be too far in the future until we get more information on why Sekiro isn't going on or why they haven't teamed up with Activision again. To be absolutely fair, FromSoftware owns the IP to Sekiro. They don't have to go to Activision to make another one. So again, we're left with a kind of what's going on. And I understand that Miazaki has talked about not liking sequels for his game, and he is even referred to Sekiro specifically and talked about how the game feels done to him, the story's complete, he's done with it. Nevertheless, we got 3 Dark Souls games. Alright, that's pretty big. So, hey, I think there's potential. Nevertheless, later on, they went back to their good old buddies, who we've talked about before, have a good relationship with them. FromSoftware and Bandai Namco team up again to bring us a certain Elden Ring that absolutely broke the gaming world forever. Absolutely amazing. Well, with the release of the Shadow of the Erdtree, again, alongside Bandai Namco, and the upcoming, playable, as far as we know now, on May 30th, Elden Ring NIGHTREIGN, a lot is in the future, and guys, it's an exciting time for gaming. This company has found its soulmate, to say, and we have a lot of promising things in the future. Simply put, the relationship between Sony and FromSoftware was tainted when Yoshida said that Demon's Souls wasn't gonna go anywhere, let's just be honest. When in fact it did only a little bit of time later when Atlus and Bandai Namco published it around the world. Sony held back what FromSoftware had in mind, and they were gonna stand for this again. After continuing to work with Bandai Namco on games and finding huge success there, Sony wanted to sweep in and maybe, rebuild that relationship up a bit. So they went out and said, can you make this game FromSoftware, this game Bloodborne for us, because we want to rebuild that relationship. Am I quoting anybody? Not in the absolute slightest. That's the paraphrasingest paraphrase you'll ever hear in your entire life. God. After that was done, I believe FromSoftware washed their hands of the entire situation, saying, hey, publicly, of course, Sony, you're great, we liked working with you, we're gonna go do our own thing now. And that's exactly what they did with Sekiro. Well, they learned their lesson with Sony, and they wanted to reach out for their new game, Sekiro, a Tenku game at the time. They reached out to an American developer, as Atlus and Bandai Namco are both Asian, and basically said, look, we want to make this game, can you help us? At the same time, though, actually, it was kind of like FromSoftware and Activision both sent each other a text at the same time saying, hey, you want to help make a game? Hey, do you want to help me make... Whoa, did we just say it at the same time? Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. And again, I cannot praise Activision enough. I know they might suck with a lot of the stuff they're doing these days, but back in the day, 2019, Sekiro, they're pretty good. Both company praises the other significantly, especially FromSoftware. They poured down glory on Activision for what they were able to do behind the scenes and development and publishing and all of it. Why they haven't gone back to work with Activision on Sekiro 2, we don't know. Why they haven't gone on their own with maybe Bandai Namco as the publisher and made a Sekiro 2, we don't know. So while a couple of the questions concerning Sekiro 2 haven't come up to us yet, we do know, very recently, thank you Yoshida, we do know why we haven't gotten a Bloodborne 2, and that's because Sony holds the IP. Sony tried to hold them back from the potential that they knew they had. All because they felt the game wasn't going to do well. Now, of course, they are the ones publishing it, they're investing a lot of money in it, so there is that, granted. But if we're going to want a Bloodborne 2, we're going to have to lay prostrate on the ground and bow our bodies as far low as we can get, and basically say, look, Sony, can you allow FromSoftware to make a Bloodborne 2, and Bloodborne, can you stoop low enough to work under Sony, now that you're at the top of the world, and make this game, because we want it so bad. And Sekiro 2, we have a lot of pleading to do, my brothers, sisters, I am sorry. Well, what do you think? As a huge fan and a part of most of these communities, I am sad that we aren't getting another one of these games because they were truly life-changing. You don't walk out of playing Sekiro the same gamer you were when you walk out of it. Unless you quit after like the first hour or so. You have to grow, you have to become something different and new and amazing. Brothers, sisters, guys, I am sorry that we aren't getting these games. It bums the heck out of me like you wouldn't believe. But that's enough from me. I want to hear from you guys. What is your favorite Soulsborne game? Have you played Sekiro? Have you played Bloodborne? What are your thoughts between the, kind of feeling between Sony and from, I don't know if that makes sense, FromSoftware. As always, because we are very community focused on this little corner of the internet, what are your thoughts? Because I want to hear from you guys. And again, I recommend checking out these two videos if you want more details behind the scenes of going on, just all of it, history, fun stuff, all of it. I recommend these two different videos. So if you're a Bloodborne fan, go check out this one. Psych, go check this one out. If you're, you know what to do. I love you guys. I hope you have a great rest of the day. And remember, life is short. Play great games. Would you believe me if I said I knew how to mind control any Soulsborne player at any given time? Want an example of my superior controlling methods? Roll, dodge left, R1, hold R2, roll, R2, 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 R2.